Throughout history, we as people have found many ways to distract ourselves from the pains of the real world, and it's come in many forms: TV, theatre, cinemas, and last but certainly not least, games. And I'm not just talking about video games, but classic games found years before any type of internet or electronics existed. Specifically, I want to talk about chess and checkers and games of that caliber. They are a pastime, a small activity within the journey of your day or week. There are certainly more important things than them, but they are still a fun pastime that might prove to be even the best part of your day. That win at poker or getting that checkmate in chess. And you may ask where I'm going with this. Well, I talk about these because of the impact and ideas they've implanted in modern games. Video games to be exact. And it's that while games have gotten bigger and they continue to evolve past the simple boundaries of a chessboard or a card deck, we are still yet to forget about them. And the way we memorialise them, at least in my mind, is in minigames. Games within our games. Games within our bigger journey, which is originally what games were and still are to this day. Minigames are a more crucial part of the video game experience than I think a lot of people realise. They provide certain necessities to certain experiences and can even make or break an experience. Now, am I saying that minigames fit into every kind of game or genre? Obviously not. There will be exceptions, however it's hard for me to think of a game that doesn't either have a minigame or could include a minigame within its world. But then again, that leads me to another curious thought. What actually counts as a minigame? The Wikipedia definition of a minigame is as follows. A minigame, sometimes called a subgame or microgame, is a short video game often contained within another video game. A minigame contains different gameplay elements and is often smaller or more simplistic than the game in which it is contained. In other words, a tiny game inside a big game. But then there's the other question: what constitutes a game? And I think you see my problem when trying to identify which is and which isn't a minigame. Here's a challenge actually: take a shot every time I say the word minigame. You will probably be dead by the end of this video, but you could call the puzzles within Resident Evil 7 a minigame. Why not? They're puzzles, which is a game in itself in a way. Why wouldn't it count? Or you could restrict it to something like Gwen, which is more accustomed to a literal minigame, such as chess or checkers. It's really a grey area, but for me personally, I don't think there is a criteria. And that's odd because I feel as if there should be. It becomes so difficult to differentiate what is a smaller game within a bigger game, or if it's just part of a bigger game, and shouldn't be quantified as anything more than a section or a small piece of a larger puzzle. Obviously, there are times where one is obviously a game within a game, but when it comes to stuff like a shooting range in Resident Evil 4, or something like the taxi driving in GTA, it becomes a lot more foggier, and I think that's what makes minigames probably the most creative and fun part of a game's world, when included. The freedom developers have to fit something in within the invisible barriers of what is a minigame allows for us to experience these small cool activities that most of the time allow for levity in the more serious games that include them, one of those being the Yakuza games. The Yakuza series, among the memes, shits and giggles, can get very dark and depressing. The life of crime from the point of view from the many protagonists throughout the series is by far some of the saddest and most heart-wrenching stories you'll experience in gaming. However, while telling these series stories of crime and drama, the series has managed to build a popularity, not only through its quality of storytelling, but through the wackiness and uniqueness of its world, and primarily in the fun and insane minigames, from a literal pissing competition to Sega games in the arcades, or the all too famous karaoke. These minigames have been found to become a staple of the series, and there's two specifically that I want to talk about, and that I think reaches the peak of what can be considered a minigame, and that is the hunting minigame from Yakuza 5, and the Sonobori Cabaret Club from Yakuza 0. Yes, they did it in Kiwami too, but Zero's is just much more iconic. Both contain a fun game while also holding an insanely good and gratifying story within it, and that's something that you'll see across various titles like Yakuza and The Witcher, and many more. They incorporate a story into their minigames for them to be more engaging. Gwent has the overarching tourney, and while I feel Yakuza 5's hunting minigame has a good story, it also feels like a necessity for it to be as good as it is, as the main crux of hunting is pretty surface level. It doesn't diminish the quality by any means, but for those unable to take a bit more of a slower pace, it will diminish your enjoyment. As Saitama, you're taught how to hunt in a small mountain village, post some story content in which you're attacked by a bear and fight it. It's Yakuza, get used to it. Anyhow, through the hunting minigame, the man who teaches you, known as Okudera, has had a long-lasting feud with the bear you fought earlier, known as Yama Orochi. And through this story, it motivates you to play the minigame and makes it fun for you to do so. Every time you hunt, you feel as if you're preparing even better for the eventual duel with Legendary Bear. Along with this, you'll be open to completing contract missions which, when completed, can net you good rewards and is also another motivator. Now, the content, as I said, is quite simple. It's slow and sometimes tedious, and is one of those minigames that are a really good example of how context, narrative, and outside factors can actually make a minigame fun or interesting to do. However, in Yakuza 0, it feels as if they perfected this to where while the Sotonabori club has an engaging and interesting story to do with your rivaling clubs, but it also just has a fun and unique design to how you actually participate in the club activities and helping the girls make the most money. Weirdly enough, it's like a strategy game with many moving pieces that there's just too much to name here, but it makes for an engaging gameplay experience that makes you want to play it over and over and over again, eventually defeating all your rival cabaret clubs and making a good amount of money in the process, which is actually quite useful in Yakuza 0 as it's the main currency you use not only to buy stuff, but upgrade Majima and Kiryu, and adds again to the motivation factor to participate in the club. It's the peak of what makes an engaging minigame shine through a game already filled to the brim with quality content, and again is a staple of how to insert a fun and lighthearted minigame, and balancing that with a very dramatic and serious story. A weird situation, however, is where minigames are the video game, and this takes us back to probably the first minigames in gaming history, found in 1982 in the game Olympic Decathlon, and is a trend found in games that still exist today. It fits into a genre where the main crux of gameplay is a large set of minigames. This has created a genre of some of the funnest group and party games, including ones like Mario Party or WarioWare for a more single player experience. The issues that arise with these type of games, however, is trying to keep a consistent and fun quality of minigames that will be played repeatedly over and over without tiring the players out. It's an issue I've found in other games where if an aspect is repeated over and over as the core gameplay loop, it can become tiring and begin a drought of enjoyment. It happened in Cuphead for me in terms of boss rushes and boss fights, and for minigames, while I love games such as Mario Party, I found after a few games in a row it begins to run dry. But those are rare occasions where the environment matters and where the developers have sometimes simply made a bad game. A majority of those games should last you for a long time, especially on repeat playthroughs, but I wanted to mention them as I think it's really cool that games have come full circle, where the games we would play have become minigames, which have now brought on their own genre of minigames, in which the game is just a bunch of minigames. But reaching back to the original games formats such as chess and checkers, I feel as if minigames have also brought those games to an audience that would most likely never touch them otherwise. Take gambling games such as poker. A majority of us gamers, including me, have never stepped foot inside a casino or would ever consider gambling in a game of poker, blackjack, etc. However, put that in place in a game such as Red Dead 2 and you've got yourself people who find poker to be the funnest pastime of the game, despite having never played it in real life. It's an interesting concept. Once again, another minigame would be Gwen, a fantasy card game set in the Witcher universe, and personally my favourite minigame perhaps of all time. It's based off of many fantasy card games, digital and physical, Magic the Gathering, Hearthstone, Pokemon, among many others, and this is a genre of physical games that gamers have most likely played, and that is the charm of it. We instantly connect to it because of the reminder it gives us to the classic card games of our childhood. And it doesn't stop there, as it somehow manages to make the most boring activities seem fun. Games themselves already do this today with stuff like cleaning or PC building, but there's a minigame that's found a home in many video games that a lot of people consider a boring activity, and that minigame is fishing. Fishing in modern, especially open world games, has become sort of a necessity to have. Its first appearance in 1984 with the game Sea Route to India, where it simply had you in a boat catching fish underneath you, has had evolved and presented itself to be a necessity in adventure open world titles. In Minecraft and Animal Crossing, is to help push your respective objectives of survival and building, and in games such as Persona 5 and Yakuza, it has found itself in the home of fun minigames. I spent countless hours taking a break from the craziness of worlds like Far Cry 5 or Final Fantasy, as it becomes a fun and relaxing activity that also rewards you in necessary ways. In Square Enix's Final Fantasy 15, catching fish is necessary to create the best dishes for Ignis, your campmate, to cook.
I've come up with a new recipe.
This allows for you to be able to cook food that gives you the best buffs, and you end up having an interconnected system that is rewarding to the player, similar to the money system we talked about earlier in Yakuza 0. Final Fantasy's fishing was so popular that Square Enix created a spin-off game in order to satiate the love for it. The trend of JRPGs and fishing being interconnected, along with it being included in many other genres, is simply too long for me to put in this video, without steering it in a completely different direction. But there is a video by a brilliant video essayist named Aidan.R, which you can check out, that gives a deep dive into all there is to know about the history of video games and fishing, so I will leave the link to that in the description. But I hope from this video you can see that minigames are so incredibly expansive and important in a lot of titles. It's probably one of the most creative parts of any game that include them, because sometimes they even create games off the fly that really only have a place in that game's world, with their own sets of rules and that include their own lore. But what I'm most proud of is how we as an industry have kept intact with our roots of the simple board games or deck of cards, even when the medium has evolved far beyond it. So whether it be the old man wanting to play a card game with you in the tavern, or taking a break from the rough and tumble of the old west to gamble your life out, or even if you want to help make the next meal for your camp buddies, if you see a minigame or a fun activity, take the time to interact and have fun with it, as it might just be the most enjoyable and lighthearted part of journeys that continue to drag us through the mud over and over every single time we play them.